Everyone in Seattle believed Marcus and Sophia Chun were the ideal couple. He was a celebrated tech entrepreneur who'd built a software empire from his garage. She was a renowned marine biologist who dedicated her life to ocean conservation. Their waterfront home overlooked the Puget Sound, and their smiles graced the covers of business magazines. But perfection was just another line Marcus had perfected. On a gray Tuesday morning, Sophia stood in their modern kitchen, preparing breakfast. Rain tapped against the floor-to-ceiling windows as she chopped fresh fruit, humming softly. Marcus entered, his eyes glued to his phone, not acknowledging her presence. "Good morning," Sophia said warmly, hoping for connection. He poured coffee without looking up. "I have a meeting in 30 minutes. I thought we could eat together. We haven't had breakfast as a couple in weeks." Marcus slammed his mug down. "Sophia, please. I'm building something important here. I don't have time for this domestic fantasy." The word stung, but Sophia had grown used to the pain. She tried once more. "I miss you, Marcus. We barely talk anymore." He finally looked at her, but his eyes held only irritation. "Miss me? I live here. Maybe if you focus less on saving fish and more on this marriage, we wouldn't have this problem. Those fish represent entire ecosystems. I'm trying to make a difference. Make a difference here first," he said coldly, straightening his tie. "This marriage feels like charity work." He left before she could respond. Sophia stared at their wedding photo on the counter, the image of Marcus kissing her forehead, promising forever. That man seemed like a stranger now. Her phone buzzed. "Marcus, working late. Don't wait up." It was the third time this week. She typed a response, but deleted it. Deep down, she already knew the truth. The expensive perfume that wasn't hers. The secret of phone calls. The distance that had grown into a canyon between them. That evening, Sophia attended a charity gala alone. She gave a speech about protecting marine life, her voice shaking slightly from nerves. When she returned to their table, Marcus leaned close, his smile frozen for the cameras. "Stop talking about your childhood in public," he hissed. "It makes you look weak. People want confidence, not sob stories. I was trying to connect with people who've struggled. Next time, run your speech by me first. I'll make it sound professional." Sophia smiled for the photographers while her heart cracked a little more. Days later, Marcus attended a tech conference downtown. That's where he met Diana Price, a venture capitalist with more money than ethics. She wore confidence like armor and spoke with the kind of authority that made powerful men lean in. "Marcus Chun," she said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. "The man who revolutionized cloud security." He was flattered instantly. "And you, Diana Price. I've read about your acquisitions. I prefer to call them strategic investments." Her smile was calculated, predatory. They talked for hours about business, ambition, and success. She laughed at his jokes, touched his arm just enough to feel deliberate. When the evening ended, Diana leaned close. "Call me. I think we could build something extraordinary together." From that night forward, Marcus was obsessed. Sophia began to fade from his thoughts entirely. He came home later and later. He locked his phone constantly. When Sophia asked simple questions about his day, he accused her of being controlling. Once, when she tried to hug him while he worked, he pushed her away roughly. "Don't distract me. This is business." "You don't even see me anymore," she whispered. He looked up with empty eyes. Maybe there's nothing new to see. The word shattered something inside her, but Sophia remained silent. She believed if she was patient enough, loving enough, kind enough, he would remember the man he used to be. She didn't know he was already gone. Diana fed Marcus's ego like poison disguised as praise. "You're too brilliant to be tied to family money," she told him one night in her penthouse. "You could be so much more without the weight holding you down." Marcus smirked. "Sophia has connections, money. I can't just leave." Diana moved closer. "Who said anything about leaving? Sometimes life creates opportunities." He understood immediately, and he didn't say no. If this story resonates with you, please subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share important stories about resilience, justice, and hope. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Together, we're building a community that believes in truth and second chances. At home, Sophia felt the walls closing in. Marcus had become a ghost who occasionally appeared to criticize or dismiss her. She tried everything, cooking his favorite meals, suggesting date nights, even offering to take time off work to travel together. Each attempt was met with disdain. One evening, she prepared a special dinner: grilled salmon with herbs, roasted vegetables, and homemade bread. She set candles on the table and waited. Marcus arrived at midnight, reeking of expensive perfume. His shirt was wrinkled. "I made dinner," Sophia said softly from the dining room. "It's cold now, but I can reheat it." "Jesus, Sophia," he snapped. "Stop trying so hard. It's pathetic." She stood, tears threatening to fall. "I'm your wife. I'm trying to save us." "Maybe that's the problem," he said, voice dripping with contempt. "You're always trying to talk, trying to fix, trying to care. It's exhausting. Maybe if you had something more interesting to offer than dolphin research, I'd want to come home." The cruelty in his voice was like ice water. Sophia steadied herself against the table. "Are you having an affair?" He actually smirked. "Would it matter? It would destroy me." He shrugged, pouring himself whiskey. "Then stop asking questions you can't handle." He walked away, leaving her trembling in the candlelight. Weeks passed like slow torture. Sophia's world shrank. Her research suffered. Her friends noticed her sadness, but she made excuses. Then one evening, Marcus came home in an unusually good mood. He kissed her forehead, the first affection in months, and poured wine for them both. "I've been thinking," he said casually, "we should update our life insurance policies. It's responsible planning, especially with your work taking you on those boat trips." Sophia blinked, confused. "Life insurance? Just making sure we're covered if anything happens. You're out on the water constantly. Accidents happen." He smiled that charming smile that once made her feel safe. But something felt wrong. The timing, the sudden warmth, the calculated casualness of it all. She didn't question it. She wanted to believe he was trying to reconnect. That night, after Marcus showered, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. Sophia had never invaded his privacy before, but something deep in her gut screamed at her to look. She picked up the phone. The message was from Diana Price. Her hand shook as she read. "Once she's gone, you're free. We'll build our empire together, baby." The room spun. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. She read it again and again. The words burned into her mind. Once she's gone, they were planning to kill her. Marcus emerged from the bathroom in a towel. "What are you doing with my phone?" Sophia's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Who is Diana Price?" He froze, then his face hardened. "You went through my phone? You're planning something. Tell me the truth." He stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. "You overthink everything, Sophia. That's always been your problem." "Tell me the truth," she cried. "Are you going to hurt me?" He leaned in until his face was inches from hers. His eyes were cold, lifeless. "If I wanted to hurt you," he whispered, "you'd already be gone." She flinched. Tears streamed down her face. He smiled then, slow, cruel, deliberate. "Now go to bed. You're embarrassing yourself." He took his phone and walked away, humming softly. Sophia stood frozen, staring at the closed bedroom door. Thunder rumbled outside as rain began to fall. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of losing him. She was afraid he was going to murder her. The next morning, Sophia called her research assistant, Jamie, and told her she needed to take a few personal days. She also contacted an old friend from law school who now worked in criminal defense. "I think my husband is trying to kill me," she said into the phone, her voice surprisingly steady. "Do you have proof?" her friend asked. "A text message. And my gut. That's not enough for police. You need more. Be careful, Sophia. If you're right, he's dangerous." Sophia hung up and stared out at the gray Seattle sky. She had always been a problem solver, a scientist who believed in evidence and facts. Now she needed to become something else, a survivor. Rain pounded against the windows the night everything changed. Sophia sat at her vanity, staring at her reflection. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her hands trembled as she clasped her necklace, a simple silver chain Marcus had given her on their first anniversary. On the dresser lay an invitation to the annual Ocean Conservation Gala. her foundation's biggest fundraiser of the year. As founder and director, her attendance was mandatory. But dread filled her stomach. Marcus appeared in the doorway, sharp in a black suit. "You're still going? It's my event. I have to be there." He leaned against the frame, arms crossed. "You look exhausted. Maybe you should rest." "I'll be fine." His smile was too smooth, too practiced. "If you say so. Drive carefully. That coastal highway gets dangerous in storms like this." Something in his tone made her blood run cold. The way he emphasized drive carefully felt like a threat disguised as concern. Sophia grabbed her clutch and forced herself to kiss his cheek. "I'll see you later." "Drive safe, Sophia. That road has no guardrails in some sections." She nodded and walked out, her heart pounding. Outside, her assistant Jamie waited by Sophia's car. A sleek blue Tesla. Marcus had insisted she drive after upgrading the maintenance system himself last week. "Dr. Chun, I already charged the car," Jamie said, holding an umbrella. "Are you sure you want to drive in this weather? I can go ahead and make sure everything's set up." Sophia hesitated. Normally, she enjoyed the drive along the coast, but tonight felt different. Marcus's words echoed in her mind. The insurance policy. Diana's text. His strange insistence that she drive. "Actually, Jamie, why don't you take my car tonight?" Sophia said suddenly. "I'll follow in the work van. I need you to get there early and check on the decorations." Jamie looked confused but nodded. "Of course, Dr. Chun." They switched keys. Sophia watched as Jamie climbed into the Tesla, and a wave of nausea hit her. Something was wrong. Every instinct screamed at her to stop this, but she needed to know the truth. She followed in the Foundation's white van, headlights cutting through sheets of rain. The coastal highway curved dangerously along cliff edges, the Pacific Ocean churning dark and violent below. Sophia's hands gripped the wheel as she watched her Tesla's taillights ahead, glowing red through the downpour. Then it happened. A loud pop echoed across the road. The Tesla swerved violently. Tires screeched against wet asphalt. The car fishtailed, spinning toward the cliff edge. "No!" Sophia screamed. The Tesla hit the low barrier. Metal shrieked. The barrier crumpled, and Sophia watched in horror as her car plunged off the cliff into the black ocean below. "Jamie!" Sophia slammed on her brakes and jumped out. Rain drenched her instantly. She ran to the edge and looked down. Far below, headlights flickered underwater, already sinking. She didn't think. She kicked off her heels and dove. The cold was crushing like being punched by ice. Salt water filled her mouth and nose. The current tried to drag her away, but she fought toward the sinking car. Through murky water, she could see the Tesla's interior lights dimming. She yanked at the door handle. It wouldn't budge. She kicked at the window until it cracked, then shattered. Inside, Jamie was unconscious, her head lolled to the side. Sophia's lungs burned. Black spots danced in her vision. She unbuckled Jamie and pulled her through the broken window. The ocean tried to claim them both, pulling them deeper, but Sophia kicked toward the surface with everything she had. They broke through gasping. Rain pelted them. Waves crashed over their heads. "Stay with me," Sophia coughed, holding Jamie's face above water. "Please stay with me." She tried to swim toward shore, but the current was too strong. It dragged them toward jagged rocks along the coast. By the time they reached land, both women were barely conscious. Sophia crawled onto wet rocks, dragging Jamie beside her. In the distance, sirens wailed. Blue lights flashed from the highway above. "Help!" She tried to call, but her voice was gone. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was the flashing lights of emergency vehicles gathering at the cliff's edge. By morning, news vans lined the coastal highway. Reporters stood in the rain, cameras pointed at the cliff where Sophia Chin's Tesla had plunged into the Pacific. Breaking news. Marine biologist Dr. Sophia Chun presumed dead after tragic accident on Highway 101, the anchor announced. Divers have recovered pieces of her vehicle, along with personal items, but no body has been found. Recovery teams pulled twisted metal and shattered glass from the water. They found Sophia's purse floating near the rocks, along with her silver necklace, the one Marcus had given her. Currents this strong can carry a body miles out to sea, one Coast Guard officer told reporters. Recovery efforts will continue, but the chances of survival are essentially zero. Marcus arrived at the scene in his black Range Rover, wearing a charcoal overcoat and sunglasses despite the gray sky. Cameras swarmed him immediately. He pressed a handkerchief to his face, his shoulders shaking. "She was my whole world," he said, voice breaking perfectly. "Sophia dedicated her life to protecting the ocean. I never imagined it would take her from me." A reporter pushed closer. "Mr. Chun, what are your plans for her foundation?" "I'll honor her legacy by continuing her work," he said nobly. "It's what she would have wanted." Behind him, Diana Price stood in a black designer coat, her expression carefully neutral. But her eyes held a glimmer of satisfaction. That evening, headlines across Seattle read, "Tech mogul mourns beloved wife, ocean conservation pioneer." Marcus gave interview after interview, each performance flawless. He wore his wedding ring prominently. He spoke of Sophia's kindness, her passion, her love for marine life. He established a memorial fund in her name. Behind closed doors, he and Diana celebrated in his penthouse, champagne glasses clinking against the backdrop of Seattle's skyline. "She went out with quite a splash," Diana joked, swirling her drink. Marcus laughed. "I told you the plan would work. No one survives that drop. The current took her miles out. Even if they find the body eventually, it'll look exactly like an accident." Diana ran her fingers along his collar. "You're free now, Marcus. And very, very rich." He kissed her, grinning. Sophia always believed in happy endings. They both laughed. Across the city, in a small clinic near the docks, Sophia opened her eyes. Pain radiated through her entire body. Her left arm was bandaged, ribs wrapped tight. Her head throbbed. The smell of antiseptic filled her nose, and she could hear the steady beep of a heart monitor. "You're awake," a nurse said, rushing to her side. "Don't try to move. You're very lucky to be alive." "Jamie," Sophia croaked, "your friend is stable. She's in next room. A fishing boat found you both washed up on the rocks before dawn. You've been unconscious for 2 days." 2 days. Marcus thought she was dead. Sophia turned her head toward the small television mounted in the corner. Her own face filled the screen. "Dr. Sophia Chun, presumed dead after vehicle accident," the news anchor said. Then the camera cut to Marcus standing at the cliff's edge, holding white roses, tears streaming down his face. Behind him stood Diana Price, dressed in black, playing the role of supportive friend. Sophia's hands clenched the hospital sheets. "He's crying," she whispered bitterly. The nurse frowned. "Do you know him?" Sophia didn't answer. She just watched as the camera showed Marcus giving another tearful interview, Diana's hand resting gently on his shoulder. The reporter's voice continued. "A memorial service is scheduled for this weekend, though no body has been recovered." No body. They were going to bury her without a body. That night, Sophia slipped quietly into Jamie's room. The young woman was awake, pale but alert. "Dr. Chun," Jamie gasped. "Thank God. I thought we were going to die." "Shoo," Sophia said gently, taking her hand. "You're safe now." The brakes just stopped working. Then the steering wheel locked. It was like the car had a mind of its own. "I know," Sophia said quietly. "Marcus sabotaged it." Jamie's eyes widened. "Your husband? But why?" "Insurance money. And freedom to be with his mistress." Sophia's voice was steady cold. "I was supposed to be driving that car. You almost died because of me." Tears filled Jamie's eyes. "What do we do?" Sophia looked out the small window at the dark ocean beyond. Her reflection stared back, bruised, scarred but alive. "We disappear," she said. "For now. He thinks I'm dead. That gives us the advantage. And then," Sophia's eyes hardened, "then I make him pay for what he tried to do." 2 weeks later, the memorial service was held at Seattle's most prestigious venue, the Waterfront Cathedral. Black limousines lined the street. White flowers filled every corner. Massive photographs of Sophia, smiling, vibrant, alive, decorated the entrance. Inside, the cathedral glowed with soft lighting and hundreds of white roses. Every seat was filled. Sophia's family sat in the front row, her mother weeping quietly, her sister staring ahead with hollow eyes. The rest of the crowd was a who's who of Seattle society: politicians, business leaders, scientists, and celebrities. Everyone wanted to be seen mourning the ocean's champion. At the very front stood Marcus Chun, immaculate in a tailored black suit. His face was a masterpiece of controlled grief, sorrow etched perfectly into every line, yet dignified and strong. Beside him, Diana Price wore elegant black, her hand resting lightly on his arm like a caring friend. Behind her sunglasses, she hid her satisfaction. The minister began, "We gather today, not in despair, but in celebration of a life dedicated to protecting our planet's oceans." Soft weeping filled the sanctuary. Cameras from news outlets zoomed in on Marcus, capturing every manufactured tear. Inside, Marcus felt nothing but triumph. Everything had gone perfectly. No body meant no autopsy, no questions, no investigation. Just a tragic accident, and a grieving widower inheriting everything. He looked at the closed casket, empty except for white roses, and felt nothing but relief. The minister gestured to him. Marcus would like to share some words. Marcus walked to the podium. Every eye followed him. He paused, drawing a breath as if gathering strength. "Sophia," he began, his voice trembling on cue, "was my compass, my light, my reason for breathing." He paused, letting his voice crack. "She saw good in everyone, even when they didn't deserve it. Especially me." Someone in the second row sobbed, audibly. "She was brilliant, compassionate, fearless," Marcus continued. "When others saw problems, Sophia saw solutions. She gave everything, her time, her energy, her heart, to causes she believed in." He pressed a hand to his chest. "Sophia taught me that love isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up every day with patience and faith. She was my best friend, my partner, my everything." He bowed his head, shoulders shaking. "And though she's gone, I'll spend every day honoring her memory and continuing her work." The cathedral fell silent. Even the minister looked moved. At the very back of the cathedral, partially hidden behind a pillar, stood a woman in a dark coat and wide-brimmed hat. Her face was obscured by a veil, her posture rigid. It was Sophia. Her hair was darker now, cut shorter. Her face was thinner, marked by healing scars. But her eyes, those burned with cold fury. She watched Marcus deliver his performance, every false word twisting like a knife in her chest. She watched Diana lean into him with practiced sympathy. She saw the cameras eating up every second of his grief. Beside her, Detective Ryan Foster stood in a plain suit, looking like any other mourner. "You sure you want to do this?" he whispered. Sophia's voice was steady. "I need to see him lie to the world one more time. I need everyone to see what comes next. We have enough evidence already. The texts, the insurance policy, the tampered brake system we recovered from your car. We can arrest him right now." "No," Sophia said firmly. "The world needs to see the truth with their own eyes. He destroyed my reputation by making everyone believe in his perfect love. They need to see his lies exposed publicly." At the altar, Marcus finished his eulogy to thunderous silence. People stood, some applauding softly. He returned to his seat beside Diana, who squeezed his hand and whispered something that made him smile faintly. Sophia's stomach churned. She recognized those earrings Diana wore. They were hers, a gift from Marcus on their wedding day. The minister raised his hands. "Let us now commit our sister, Sophia Chun, to eternal rest." The organ began playing softly. The room stilled. Marcus bowed his head, eyes closed, the picture of devastating grief. Diana dabbed at her eyes dramatically. Sophia's heart pounded. The moment had arrived. The minister's voice echoed, "May she rest in peace." And then, as if scripted by fate itself, the heavy cathedral doors burst open with a thunderous crash. Every head turned at once. Wind and rain swept in from outside. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, rain streaming off her coat. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The figure stepped forward into the light, pushing back her veil. Whispers erupted. "Oh my God! Is that— No, it can't be." Marcus's head snapped up. His face went white. His mouth fell open. Diana's hand slipped from his arm, her eyes widening in horror. Sophia Chun stood alive before them all, her voice cutting through the shocked silence. "Sorry I'm late." For several heartbeats, nobody moved. The only sound was rain hammering against the cathedral's stained glass windows. Sophia stood in the center aisle, water dripping from her coat onto the marble floor. Her scarred face was pale but resolute. Every eye in the sanctuary stared at her in disbelief. Marcus remained frozen at the altar, his mouth working but producing no sound. His carefully crafted composure had shattered completely. Diana took a step backward, her heel catching on the carpet. Someone near the front dropped their program. The sound echoed through the stunned silence. "Is that really her?" someone whispered. "She's alive," another voice breathed. The minister made the sign of the cross, his hands trembling. "Dear God." Sophia took another step forward, her gaze locked on Marcus. "Surprised to see me, darling?" Marcus finally found his voice. "This is impossible. You're dead." "Am I?" Sophia's tone was cold, steady. "Or did you just hope I was?" "This is insane," Marcus said, turning to the crowd with desperate gestures. "This woman, whoever she is playing a sick game. That's not my wife." "I know your voice better than anyone," Sophia said, moving closer. "I know how you sound when you lie. Like right now." Diana grabbed Marcus's arm. "Do something," she hissed. Sophia's eyes shifted to Diana. "And you must be Diana Price. I've read your messages to my husband. Very romantic, talking about building empires over my dead body." The crowd erupted in whispers. Phones came out. Camera flashes lit up the cathedral. "This is slander," Diana shouted. "Security!" But Detective Foster stepped forward from the back, holding up his badge. "Nobody's going anywhere." Detective Ryan Foster, Seattle PD. Marcus's face went from white to red. "What is this? Some kind of setup?" "It's called justice," Sophia said. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small digital recorder. "Would you like to hear the truth, Marcus? Or should I call you a murderer?" "You're crazy," Marcus spat. "Everyone can see you've lost your mind." Sophia clicked the recorder. Marcus's voice filled the cathedral, clear and unmistakable. "Once she's gone, we're free, Diana. The insurance policy is airtight. No one will suspect anything. Tragic accident, grieving husband, new life." Diana's voice responded. "And if someone questions it, they won't. I made sure the brake system would fail on that coastal curve. She'll go right off the cliff. The ocean will do the rest." The cathedral erupted. Gasps. Shouts. Sophia's mother stood up, her hand over her mouth. Reporters pushed forward, cameras recording every second. "That's edited," Marcus shouted, his voice cracking with panic. "She doctored that audio." Detective Foster stepped closer. "We've had that recording analyzed by 3 independent forensic labs. It's authentic, Mr. Chun. This is a setup. She disappeared on purpose to frame me." Sophia's voice cut through his desperation. "I disappeared because I almost died. Your plan failed, Marcus. The only reason I'm alive is because Jamie drove my car that night instead of me." More gasps. Someone in the crowd said, "He tried to kill his own wife." Marcus backed away, bumping into Diana. "You don't understand. She was controlling me, manipulating me. I had no choice." "You had every choice," Sophia said, her voice breaking slightly. "I loved you. I would have given you anything. But you chose murder and money over our marriage." Detective Foster nodded to the officers positioned at the exits. "Marcus Chun, you're under arrest for attempted murder, insurance fraud, and conspiracy." "No." Marcus looked wildly around the room. "You can't do this here. Not in front of everyone." "You wanted a public memorial," Sophia said quietly. "Consider this your public reckoning." 2 officers moved up the aisle. The crowd parted as they approached Marcus. "Don't touch me," he screamed, trying to pull away. "I'm Marcus Chun. You can't arrest me like this." But they did. They cuffed his hands behind his back right there at the altar where he'd just eulogized the wife he tried to kill. Diana tried to slip toward the side exit, but another detective blocked her path. "Diana Price, you're also under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder." You have no proof, Diana said coldly. Sophia held up her phone. I have every text message you sent Marcus. Every plan you made. Every cold-blooded word. Diana's mask finally cracked. You should have stayed dead, she snarled. But I didn't, Sophia said. And now the whole world knows what you are. The officers led them both down the aisle as reporters shouted questions and cameras flashed like lightning. Sophia stood motionless, watching the man who'd tried to bury her being dragged out in handcuffs. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply breathed. The days following Marcus's arrest felt surreal. Sophia's story dominated every news outlet. Video of her dramatic entrance at the funeral went viral, shared millions of times across social media. Headlines screamed, "Dead wife returns to expose murder plot," and Tech Mobile arrested at wife's funeral. Sophia sat in Detective Foster's office, exhausted but relieved. The small room smelled of coffee and old paper files. Outside the window, Seattle's skyline stretched gray and familiar. The prosecutor says it's one of the strongest cases she's seen, Detective Foster said, sliding a folder across his desk. Between the recording, the text messages, and the forensic evidence from your car's brake system, Marcus won't see freedom for decades. Sophia stared at the folder without opening it. What about Diana? She's trying to cut a deal, claiming Marcus manipulated her. But her messages show she was an equal partner in the planning. She's looking at 15 to 20 years. Sophia nodded slowly. And Jamie, your assistant is recovering well. She's already given her statement. She'll testify if needed, but honestly, we might not even need a trial. Marcus's lawyer is talking about a plea deal. He'll take a deal. Foster leaned back in his chair. His legal team knows they can't win. The evidence is overwhelming. The question isn't if he's guilty, it's how long he'll be locked up. Sophia felt a weight lift slightly from her chest. I need to visit Jamie. Of course. But Sophia, Foster's voice softened. How are you holding up? She considered the question. Physically, she was healing. The scars would fade with time. But emotionally, psychologically, those wounds went deeper. I'm angry, she admitted. Not just at Marcus, but at myself. I saw the signs. The distance, the cruelty, the lies. I knew something was wrong, but I kept hoping love would be enough. You're not responsible for his choices. I know, but I gave him everything, and he saw it as weakness. Foster shook his head. You gave him trust and loyalty. That's not weakness. What he did with it, that's on him. Sophia stood, gathering her things. Thank you, Detective, for believing me when I first came to you. Thank you for having the courage to see this through. That afternoon, Sophia visited Jamie at her apartment. The young woman answered the door with a bright smile, though she still moved carefully due to her healing ribs. Dr. Chun, Jamie hugged her gently. I've been watching the news. You're like a superhero. Sophia laughed softly. I'm just someone who survived. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, then Jamie spoke again. What will you do now? Sophia wiped her eyes. Rebuild. My foundation, my work, my life. Marcus tried to erase me, but I'm still here. I won't let him take anything else from me. That's the spirit, Jamie smiled. The ocean still needs you, and so do all those projects you started. Over the following weeks, Sophia slowly reclaimed her life. She returned to her foundation's offices, where her staff greeted her with tears and cheers. The board immediately reinstated her as director and removed Marcus from all positions. Her first order of business was restructuring everything Marcus had touched during her death. She discovered he'd been siphoning funds and redirecting donations to shell companies he controlled with Diana. He wasn't just trying to kill me, Sophia told her lawyer during a meeting. He was systematically destroying everything I built. We'll recover every penny, her lawyer assured her. And his assets are frozen. Between the life insurance fraud and the embezzlement, he'll lose everything. Sophia also reconnected with her family. Her mother held her for a long time, sobbing with relief and joy. I knew something was wrong with him, her mother said. The way he looked at you changed over the years. But I never imagined he'd do something like this. Her sister was less forgiving. I want to testify at his trial. I want him to hear what he put this family through. He will, Sophia promised. Everyone will hear the truth. The The media attention was overwhelming. Interview requests flooded in from every major network. Sophia declined most of them, but she did agree to one interview with a local journalist who'd covered marine conservation for years. "Why come back?" the journalist asked. "You could have started a new life somewhere else. No one would have blamed you." Sophia considered the question carefully. "Because hiding would have meant he won. He tried to erase me, to steal my identity, my work, my legacy. Coming back wasn't just about justice. It was about reclaiming who I am." Do you have a message for other people experiencing abuse or betrayal? Trust your instincts, Sophia said firmly. "I knew something was wrong for months, but I talked myself out of believing it. If something feels off, investigate. Ask questions. Protect yourself. Love shouldn't require you to ignore warning signs." The interview aired to widespread acclaim. Domestic violence organizations reached out, asking Sophia to speak at events. Survivors wrote to her, sharing their own stories of betrayal and recovery. Sophia realized her story had become bigger than her personal tragedy. It had become a symbol of resilience, of refusing to be silenced, of fighting back against those who thought they could destroy you. One evening, Sophia returned to the waterfront home she'd shared with Marcus. The police had finished processing it as a crime scene, and she needed to retrieve her belongings before putting it on the market. Walking through the empty rooms felt surreal. Everything looked the same. The modern furniture, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the sound, the sleek kitchen where Marcus had dismissed her attempts at connection. But it felt different now. The memories held no power over her anymore. In the bedroom, she found her research journals, her photographs from field expeditions, her diving certifications. She packed them carefully, reclaiming pieces of herself. In Marcus's office, she discovered one more thing, a framed photo of them from their wedding day. They looked so happy, so full of hope. She stared at it for a long moment, then left it face down on the desk. That version of her life was over, and she was ready to build something new. 6 months later, Marcus Chin's trial began at the King County Courthouse in downtown Seattle. Media trucks lined the streets. Security was tight as protesters gathered outside, some demanding justice for Sophia, others morbidly fascinated by the scandal. Sophia sat in the front row of the courtroom, flanked by her sister and Jamie. She wore a simple navy suit, her posture straight and strong. She'd come too far to show weakness now. Marcus entered in an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed, looking nothing like the confident tech mogul who once commanded boardrooms. His hair had grayed at the temples. His eyes were hollow, darting nervously around the room. When his gaze landed on Sophia, he flinched. She stared back unflinchingly. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Morrison, called the court to order. The state of Washington versus Marcus Chun. Charges include attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, and embezzlement. How does the defendant plead? Marcus's attorney, a sharp-dressed man named Robert Kellerman, stood. "Not guilty, Your Honor." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Despite all the evidence, Marcus was going to fight. The prosecution, led by Deputy District Attorney Sarah Chun, no relation, delivered a devastating opening statement. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she began, "this case is about a man who valued money more than life itself. Marcus Chun systematically planned to murder his wife, Dr. Sophia Chun, to collect a $5 million life insurance policy and run away with his mistress, Diana Price." She walked toward the jury box. "The evidence will show that Mr. Chin sabotaged his wife's vehicle, causing it to crash off a cliff into the Pacific Ocean. His plan failed only because Dr. Chin's assistant drove the car that night instead. One innocent woman nearly died, and Dr. Chin herself almost drowned trying to save her." Sarah gestured toward Sophia. "The prosecution will prove beyond any reasonable doubt that Marcus Chun is not just a fraudster. He's a would-be killer who almost got away with a perfect crime." The defense's opening statement was predictably desperate. "My client is not a monster," Kellerman argued. "He's a man caught in a toxic marriage who made terrible decisions. But making bad choices doesn't make you a murderer." The prosecution's case relies on circumstantial evidence, edited recordings, and the testimony of a wife who has every reason to lie. Sophia's jaw tightened, but she didn't react outwardly. The first witness was Detective Foster. He methodically walked the jury through the investigation. How Sophia had first contacted him 3 weeks before the accident, expressing fears for her safety. How he'd advised her to document everything. Dr. Chen showed me text messages between her husband and Diana Price, Foster testified. Messages that clearly indicated they were planning something. The defense objected repeatedly, but Judge Morrison overruled them each time. Next came the forensic expert who'd examined the Tesla's brake system. The brake lines were deliberately cut, he explained, showing photographs and diagrams. Not completely severed, that would have been too obvious. Instead, they were scored with a precision tool, so they would fail under pressure, specifically on sharp turns or sudden stops. Could this have been accidental? The prosecutor asked. Absolutely not. This was intentional sabotage. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. When Jamie took the stand, the room fell silent. She looked small but determined. Tell us what happened the night of October 15th, Sarah Chun prompted gently. Jamie took a breath. Dr. Chin asked me to drive her car to the gala because she wanted to follow in the work van. I thought it was strange, but I didn't question it. Her voice wavered. I was driving on Highway 101 when suddenly the brakes stopped working. Then the steering wheel locked. I couldn't control the car at all. It went straight through the guardrail and into the ocean. What's the next thing you remember? Waking up underwater with Dr. Chun pulling me out. She saved my life. If she hadn't been there, I would have drowned. Several jurors wiped their eyes. During cross-examination, Kellerman tried to suggest the brake failure could have been a manufacturing defect. Isn't it possible the brake system failed due to a design flaw? He pressed. No, Jamie said firmly. That car had just been serviced by Mr. Chen the week before. He specifically told Dr. Chun he'd personally checked all the safety systems. That testimony landed like a bomb. The prosecution then played the recording of Marcus and Diana discussing their plan. The jury listened in silence, their faces growing darker with each word. When Marcus's voice said, "The ocean will do the rest," several jurors shook their heads in disgust. On the third day, Diana Price took the stand as part of her plea agreement. She'd agreed to testify against Marcus in exchange for a reduced sentence. She looked diminished in her prison jumpsuit, her carefully cultivated elegance gone. "Ms. Price," Sarah Chun began, "how did you meet Marcus Chun?" "At a tech conference 18 months ago," Diana answered flatly. "And when did your relationship become romantic?" "About a month after we met." "Was Marcus still married to Dr. Sophia Chun at that time?" "Yes." "Did you know that?" Diana hesitated. "Yes." "And did there come a time when Marcus discussed ending his marriage?" Diana's voice dropped. "He said he couldn't divorce her because she'd take half of everything. He said he'd built his company before they married, but Washington's community property laws would destroy him financially. So what did he propose instead?" Long pause. "He said if something happened to Sophia, he'd inherit everything through her life insurance policy and family trust." The courtroom erupted. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Sarah Chun continued. "Did you participate in planning Sophia's death?" Diana's eyes filled with tears, whether genuine or calculated. No one could tell. "I thought he was just venting, but then he started getting specific, talking about brake lines, insurance policies, timing. I should have gone to the police, but I didn't. I was in too deep." "Did you send Marcus a message saying, 'Once she's gone, you're free'?" "Yes." "Did you know he planned to kill his wife when you sent that message?" Diana looked down. "Yes." The testimony was damning. Even Kellerman's aggressive cross-examination couldn't undo the damage. On the 5th day, Sophia took the stand. The courtroom was packed. Every seat filled, people standing in the back. Marcus wouldn't look at her. Sarah Chun approached gently. "Dr. Chun, please tell the jury about your marriage to Marcus Chun." Sophia spoke clearly, her voice steady. She described the early years of happiness, then the gradual shift in Marcus's behavior. The cruelty, the distance, the perfume that wasn't hers. "When did you first suspect your husband wanted to harm you?" Sarah asked. "When I saw the text message from Diana Price on his phone. It said, 'Once she's gone, you're free.' What did you do? I contacted Detective Foster. He advised me to be careful and document everything. Then Marcus suggested I update my life insurance policy, making him the sole beneficiary. That's when I knew I was in real danger. Why did you have your assistant drive your car that night? Sophia's voice caught slightly. Marcus had been too insistent that I drive. Too specific about me taking that coastal route. Every instinct told me something was wrong. I didn't want to believe my husband would kill me, but I couldn't ignore the evidence. She looked directly at Marcus for the first time. I was right. The cross-examination was brutal. Kellerman tried to paint Sophia as vindictive, manipulative, a woman scorned who faked her own death to frame her husband. Isn't it true you were having financial problems at your foundation? He pressed. No. Isn't it true you staged this entire scenario because you wanted Marcus's money? No. I jumped into the ocean to save my assistant's life. I nearly died. I have scars all over my body from the rocks and the crash. Do you think I did that for money? Her voice rose with genuine anger. Your client tried to murder me, and when he thought he succeeded, he threw a funeral and cried fake tears while planning his new life with his mistress. Those are facts, Mr. Kellerman, not opinions. The courtroom burst into applause. Judge Morrison gavelled for order, but even she looked sympathetic. After 2 weeks of testimony, both sides rested. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood. On the charge of attempted murder, how do you find? Guilty. Sophia exhaled. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder? Guilty. On the charge of insurance fraud? Guilty. Marcus's head dropped into his hands. His attorney put a hand on his shoulder but said nothing. Judge Morrison addressed the defendant. Mr. Chun, you will be sentenced in 30 days. Until then, you will remain in custody. This court is adjourned. As the bailiffs led Marcus away, he finally looked at Sophia. She met his gaze with cold clarity. He tried to bury her. Instead, he'd buried himself. 30 days later, the courthouse was once again packed for Marcus Chin's sentencing hearing. This time, there were fewer reporters, but more survivors. People who'd followed Sophia's story and found courage in her resilience. Sophia sat at her usual spot, but today felt different. This was the closing of a chapter, not just another hearing. Judge Morrison entered, and everyone rose. Be seated, she said. We're here for sentencing in the matter of Washington versus Marcus Chun. Mr. Chun, please stand. Marcus rose slowly, his orange jumpsuit hanging loose on his frame. He'd lost weight in jail. His once polished appearance had given way to exhaustion and defeat. Before I impose sentence, Judge Morrison said, the victim has requested to make a statement. Dr. Chun, please approach. Sophia walked to the podium, her hands steady despite the emotion building in her chest. She'd written and rewritten this statement dozens of times. She looked at Marcus, then turned to address the court. Your Honor, members of the court, I stand before you today, not as a victim, but as a survivor. Marcus Chun didn't just try to end my life. He tried to erase my existence, steal my legacy, and profit from my death. Her voice grew stronger. For months before that night, he destroyed me emotionally. He told me I was worthless, pathetic, exhausting. He made me doubt my own reality. That psychological abuse was its own kind of murder, a slow killing of my spirit, my confidence, my sense of self-worth. Several people in the courtroom nodded, but his plan failed. I survived, and in surviving, I learned something crucial. My worth was never dependent on his love or approval. I was always enough. She paused, gathering herself. I don't hate Marcus. Hate requires too much energy, and I've wasted enough years on him already. What I feel is pity. He had everything, love, success, respect, and he threw it away for greed. Now she looked directly at Marcus. You taught me an important lesson. Sometimes the person who promises to love you forever becomes the person you need to survive. I survived you, Marcus, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure others know they can survive too. She turned back to the judge. I ask that you sentence him to the maximum penalty allowed by law. Not for revenge, but for justice. For every woman who's been told she's crazy for trusting her instincts. For every person who's been emotionally destroyed by someone who claimed to love them. And for every survivor who needs to know that their truth matters. Sophia returned to her seat. Her sister squeezed her hand. The prosecutor then presented additional evidence of Marcus's lack of remorse. Letters he'd written from jail claiming Sophia had trapped him, that he was the real victim. Marcus's attorney made a final plea for leniency, arguing that his client had suffered enough, that he'd lost everything. Judge Morrison listened impassively, then removed her glasses. Mr. Chun, I've presided over many cases in my career, but few have disturbed me as deeply as this one. You didn't just plan to kill your wife. You planned to profit from it, to play the grieving widower while starting a new life with your mistress. You showed no remorse, no empathy, no humanity. She leaned forward. Dr. Chin's statement highlighted something important. This wasn't just attempted murder. This was sustained psychological abuse, financial manipulation, and a calculated plan to erase a human being. Marcus stared at the floor. The law requires me to sentence you on each count. On the charge of attempted murder, I sentence you to 25 years in state prison. On conspiracy to commit murder, an additional 10 years to run consecutively. On insurance fraud, 5 years, also consecutive. Total sentence, 40 years without possibility of parole for the first 20. Gasps filled the courtroom. Marcus swayed slightly. You will also pay full restitution to Dr. Chin for all funds you embezzled from her foundation, plus damages. Your assets will be seized and liquidated to satisfy this debt. Judge Morrison's voice hardened. You tried to bury your wife, Mr. Chun. Instead, you've buried yourself. Bailiff, please remove the prisoner. As the bailiffs led Marcus away, he turned one last time to look at Sophia. She didn't look away. She met his gaze with the strength of someone who'd fought through hell and emerged whole. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Sophia. Dr. Chun, how do you feel about the sentence? Do you forgive your husband? What's next for you? Sophia raised a hand, and the crowd quieted. Today represents justice, not just for me, but for every person who's been told their fear isn't real, their intuition isn't valid, their pain doesn't matter. Marcus Chun will spend decades in prison, which is appropriate for what he tried to do. As for forgiveness, she continued, that's a personal journey I'm still on. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean what he did was okay. It means I refuse to let his actions define the rest of my life. What's next for me? I'm returning to my work. The ocean still needs protecting. Marine life still needs advocates. And survivors still need voices telling them they're not alone. She smiled, genuine and warm. Marcus tried to end my story. Instead, he just gave me a more important one to tell. One reporter called out, "Do you have any advice for people in abusive relationships?" Sophia paused thoughtfully. Trust yourself. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Document everything. Reach out to friends, family, professionals. You're not crazy, you're not overreacting, and you're not alone. And most importantly, your life is worth fighting for. She gave a final wave and walked toward her waiting car, her sister and Jamie flanking her protectively. That evening, Sophia returned to her new apartment overlooking Elliott Bay. It was smaller than the mansion she'd shared with Marcus, but it was hers, filled with her research, her books, her memories of diving expeditions and marine discoveries. She poured a glass of wine and stood at the window, watching ferries cross the dark water. Her phone buzzed with messages of support. From her mother, "So proud of you, sweetheart." From colleagues, "Welcome back, Dr. Chun. The ocean missed you." From survivors she'd never met, "Thank you for showing us it's possible to survive." Sophia felt tears slip down her cheeks, but they weren't tears of pain anymore. They were tears of relief, of release, of new beginnings. She'd survived the unthinkable. She'd faced her would-be killer in court. She'd reclaimed her voice, her work, her life. Marcus had tried to write her ending. Instead, she'd written her own beginning. 1 year later, Sophia stood on the deck of a research vessel off the coast of Washington, the Pacific Ocean stretching endlessly before her. The salt air filled her lungs, the sun warmed her face, and for the first time in years, she felt genuinely at peace. Dr. Chun, we're ready for the dive, called Jamie, now her full-time research coordinator. Sophia smiled. Let's do it. She pulled on her wetsuit and checked her diving equipment with practiced ease. Below the surface waited a coral restoration project she'd been planning for years, one of many initiatives her foundation had launched since she'd returned to work. As she descended into the cool water, surrounded by schools of fish and swaying kelp forests, Sophia felt completely present. This was where she belonged. Not in Marcus's shadow, not in anyone's narrative but her own. The coral restoration project was thriving. Young polyps had attached to the artificial reef structures, creating new habitat for marine life. It was small but significant progress, proof that healing and growth were possible even after devastation. After the dive, Sophia's team gathered on deck to review data. The biodiversity index is up 18% since we started, reported Miguel, her lead marine biologist. This could be a model for coastal restoration worldwide. It's a start, Sophia said, reviewing the charts. We've got a long way to go, but this proves the approach works. Her foundation had expanded significantly over the past year. The publicity from the trial, while traumatic, had brought attention to her work. Donations poured in from people inspired by her story. She'd used every penny to fund research, education, and conservation projects. But Sophia had also expanded the foundation's mission. She'd established a domestic violence support program, offering resources and legal assistance to survivors. She'd hired counselors who specialized in trauma and recovery. She'd created scholarships for women rebuilding their lives after abuse. You're helping people in more ways than you know, Jamie told her during the boat ride back to shore. I wish I'd had this kind of support when I needed it, Sophia admitted. Maybe I would have seen the warning signs sooner. You're giving others what you wish you'd had. That's powerful. Back in Seattle, Sophia's calendar was full but manageable. She'd learned to set boundaries, to say no, to prioritize her own well-being alongside her work. She'd started therapy shortly after the trial, working through the complex emotions of betrayal, survival, and recovery. Her therapist, Dr. Maria Santos, had helped her understand that healing wasn't linear. Some days you'll feel strong, Dr. Santos had told her. Other days the trauma will resurface. Both are normal. Both are part of healing. Sophia had experienced both kinds of days. There were moments when she felt invincible, capable of anything. And there were nights when she woke up gasping, dreaming of cold water and brake lights disappearing over a cliff. But slowly, the good days outnumbered the bad. She'd also reconnected with old friends she'd lost touch with during her marriage. They'd gathered around her with love and support, reminding her who she'd been before Marcus, who she could be again. One evening, Sophia attended a fundraising gala for a women's shelter. She'd been asked to speak about her experience. Standing at the podium, looking out at hundreds of faces, she felt nervous but ready. A year ago, I attended my own funeral, she began, and the room went quiet. My husband had tried to kill me, and when he thought he'd succeeded, he threw himself a performance worthy of an Oscar. Uncomfortable laughter rippled through the crowd. But I survived, and in the years since, I've learned something important. Surviving isn't enough. We have to move beyond survival into thriving. She spoke about the warning signs she'd missed, the ways Marcus had isolated and manipulated her, the importance of trusting your instincts. If you're in a relationship where you feel afraid, where you're constantly walking on eggshells, where someone makes you doubt your own reality, that's not love. That's control, and you deserve better. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, women approached her with their own stories. Some were still in dangerous situations. Others had escaped and were rebuilding. Each one thanked her for speaking up. You made me feel less alone, one woman said, tears streaming down her face. You're not alone, Sophia assured her, squeezing her hand. None of us are. Later that night, Sophia returned to her apartment and opened her laptop. She'd been working on something personal, a memoir about her experience. The working title was Resurfacing: How I Survived My Husband's Perfect Murder. She'd been hesitant to write it first, unsure if she wanted to relive those painful memories. But her therapist had encouraged her, and she'd found the process cathartic. More importantly, she'd been contacted by a publisher who believed her story could help countless others. Sophia typed the final words of her conclusion. Marcus Chun tried to erase me. He planned carefully, executed perfectly, and thought he'd won. But he underestimated one crucial thing: my will to survive. I didn't survive to get revenge. I survived because life is precious, because my work matters, because there are still oceans to protect and people to help and stories to tell. Marcus is in prison, and I am free. Not just physically free, but emotionally, spiritually free. Free from his manipulation, his cruelty, his lies. He tried to write my ending. Instead, he inspired my new beginning. To anyone reading this who feels trapped, who feels afraid, who feels alone, you have more strength than you know. Your life has value. Your story matters. And survival is possible. Trust yourself. Trust your instincts. Trust that you deserve better. And when you resurface, and you will resurface, the world will be waiting to celebrate you. Sophia saved the document and closed her laptop. She walked to her window and looked out at the city lights, reflecting on the dark water. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Dinner this Sunday? Your sister wants to introduce us to her new boyfriend." Sophia smiled and typed back, "I'll be there." Life had become beautifully ordinary again. Family dinners, research projects, early mornings and quiet evenings. Friendships, laughter, purpose. She thought about Marcus sometimes, sitting in his prison cell, facing decades of consequences for his choices. She didn't wish him harm, but she didn't wish him well either. He'd become irrelevant to her life, a chapter that had closed. Diana had been sentenced to 15 years and was reportedly miserable in prison, a far cry from her penthouse lifestyle. Justice had been served. But more importantly, Sophia had been freed. As she prepared for bed that night, Sophia caught her reflection in the mirror. The scars on her temple had faded but remained visible, a permanent reminder of what she'd survived. She used to hate those scars. Now she saw them differently. They were proof. Proof that she'd fought. Proof that she'd survived. Proof that she was stronger than anyone, including herself, had ever imagined. Sophia turned off the lights and climbed into bed, no longer afraid of nightmares, no longer haunted by what might have been. She'd resurfaced from the depths Marcus had tried to drag her into, and she was never going under again. And so Sophia's story comes full circle, from victim to survivor to thriver. If her journey inspired you, please subscribe to our channel. We share stories of resilience, justice, and hope because the world needs to know that survival is possible and thriving is the best revenge. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs encouragement, and tell us in the comments, what's the most important lesson you learned from Sophia's story? Thank you for being part of this community. Together, we're building hope and supporting survivors everywhere. Until next time, remember, your story isn't over. You're still writing it. Make it beautiful.